along with the many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, who settled here, have made a significant contribution to the local community. We hope you and your family are able to attend the World Science over the next 3 days. Enjoy an extraordinary way from turtle hatching to meet Pepper, the world's most responsive robot, as well as the dazzling street science. And events that showcase the stars in science. A festival of this size possible without any organisations. The enormous grateful to our strategic tourism events Queensland, Brisbane marketing, the Queensland government. I moderated this morning is Bernie, an award-winning science writer with the ABC Science Online, and best known for her role as judge on Motion Papers. I hope you enjoyed the show.
Okay. Hello everyone. I'm usually a little more advanced to my button. I'm not back to my button. Welcome to the World Science Festival, World Science Festival Pioneers event. It's great to hear. So Pioneers is incredible because it gives regular people like us a chance to interact with science Dr. Sylvia Earle. I know you've been studying and some of you questions which you're going to get the chance to ask in just a moment and you can as well. So before we get started on Pioneers and our Pioneers, just like to let us just get a bit of a brush up on the web and Sylvia does a documentary about Sylvia, Sylvia and her work. And I tell you, if you won't tell you the impressed by Sylvia and Sylvia, face and over after this. So let's have a look at Mission Blue.
I see things others do not, others do not. The world has changed, the world has changed. My background was way back next to Mexico. I first fell in love with others had the opportunity to buy scenes. I have seen thousands of hours underwater. It's
a pleasure to introduce the scientist, engineer, and explorer.
All of us beneficiaries burns through fossil fuels. What cost? 60 years ago, next 40 years ago, no one imagined the harm of it. I saw the influence of what we can do to the natural world. The world without ocean, the world without ocean, without clouds, like Mars. Look at the ocean.
In 1990, society was known National Oceanic.
I didn't want to be. I was never allowed to come again. I must resign. As what I said, more freedom.
She's not afraid. She's not afraid. You know what you're doing, and know what you're doing, and it's.
If we continue business as usual, real trouble.
She's made it her life. She's made it so make sure everybody else knows what's going on. Sylvia has a wish. With the calls, what she calls from the ocean. That's the way. In the same way, going out for decades.
I wish green technology, safe, restore the ocean.
radical that you had all this on being for Noah and she put on Noah and taken off your out there and trying to get there and you see the greatest challenge in our lifetime. Sylvia Earle is someone who's making sure that the rest of us don't really see and really see the deep of the ocean, making sure that we know what's going on there, what's going on that we're having more fun, we're having fun and trying to find the other way to not save to the ocean. So the ocean, that's enough for me. That's enough for me. Join me in welcoming our special Sylvia, I've done enough standing. I'm sure you have standing. I'm sure you have too. Before we get going this morning, I said we've got a bunch of and she's going to very graciously. But you guys, some of you want to get here, to get here to shout out. When I say the name of your on State High School, it's a very high pitch, very high pitch. State High School. Very good Queensland, very good Queensland Sciences campus. Some water. The Health Academy, excellent. The stars there, you're right. Anyway, you're right. Brisbane State High School, Brisbane State High School. Meridian State College. Meridian. Ambrose Tracy College. And West End Primary School. State High School. And Mount Maria College. And the school like this girl like who ended up at a school from 1978 and 1978 high school. Here's a red bag. It turns out now, we're going from here, but they're reading and I'm reading all last things and not just lunch. Sorry. From the STEM camp. Yes. You're not allowed to speak. You're not allowed to speak on careers. It's just not allowed. Are you from the STEM? Are you from the STEM camp? Are you from the Tablelands? Okay, right. I think we've got an idea. We've got an optional hangout featuring Jared. We can't use all the wave to see video. We're building It's really enough for me to get as many of your questions possible. So are you ready to do that? Something growing stand lines. Let's have at it. Let's have terrible grandmother learning that. Now, can I start with McGregor State High School?
As a student in I would like to contribute in some way to help reduce some oceans and reefs. What can I do in my daily life to help environment?
What do you do in your daily life to protect the environment? As most of these organizations. I think the most thing that anyone can do right now is to get up to speed with Will about where we fit in the natural world. This is maybe the best time ever to be a kid, or to be anything, because we're the beneficiaries of preceding exploration, gathering knowledge, gathering access. Many of us in ways that no one had. When I was a child, was all of you, kids everywhere, people everywhere, access to knowledge, access to knowledge, people smart as people 50 years ago, 10,000 years ago, we could not know. Now is known about how humans, how hard humans are a part of nature. We are changing nature. The planet keeps us alive. And I love that Martian where you're going up to another system where there's no ready source of water. So That's it. Make care. It's there. There's no food either. There's no food. We have a life support system, but it's a distillation of all most energies. The knowing that is the key. Taking care of it. If you don't know, if you it matters to take care of yourself, take care of fish, then why would you care? Why would you care? Now we know. But now it's your job, and it's everyone's job. It's everyone's job to get it, to understand, to understand what the air, we do with the air, we do with the fish, we do with the trees, do with the trees. All is a life support system. With 7 billion people, 7 billion vegetables. So what you choose to eat, what you choose to choose to know that what we put in the ocean, we put in the ocean with plastic, that does not exist when I was a kid. We're changing the ocean, we're changing the air, changing the world, unprecedented. So look in the mirror, everybody. What is it that you're good at? What is it that you're good at? You sing, you write, you're good with math, Who are you? Who are you? You're a teacher, doesn't matter who you are, a minister, you've got more power, perhaps than some, but it's using the power you've got, and realizing that it doesn't matter who you are, who you have power, you're not seen that way, Everything you're good at advancement starts because somebody gets an idea. There's a girl who was in Texas, my country, that started picking up trash and doing it. Nobody asked her to, she just started doing it because she saw that it needed done. Other people said, well, how's she doing something? Because she didn't have to, she needs some help. But one thing led to another, it grew, not just in Texas, but around the country. People got behind kid who's making a difference, to make a difference. Look at yourself and say, what can I make a difference?
Fantastic and very challenging and very challenging. We've all got to learn as much as we can, and then we go and learn as much as we can. And I guess one way of learning is one goes to watch me. Yeah. I think
lots of things that are out there. Go get your ocean. Go see the ocean. Go see for yourself. Everybody has do that thing to do that so well. Ask questions. You start out with it as a kid. You start out not wanting anything. You learn what you got. Everyone has that. Everyone has that. You start asking questions. Looking at the evidence. And deciding for yourself.
So go jump in the ocean. Go jump off the ocean. That's a leading sign. Don't take it too fast. Don't take it as a follow any instructions. Okay. Second question from Grace Rika. Had a Queensland health science right hand.
I was just saying, wondering the rate of fish from the ocean for our consumption. That store closed the ecosystem.
Oh, if you hadn't asked that question, that's sad. It's a question that needs to be asked. What can we do? Given the rate clock of wildlife, we had the impression that came back from the ocean that the ocean was too big before. We could take anything out of the ocean, anything out of the ocean. No problem. We put anything into the ocean, anything.
No problem. The ocean is so big, so vast, so resilient, and we're just little human beings. Nothing we could do could change the ocean, and even if we did, what difference would it make? Because it was here in Australia that someone asked a reporter, was in the newspaper, from this ocean dried up to the ocean dries up to what difference would it make? That's when I pulled the Mars card and said, okay, think about Mars. No ocean, no life, no ocean, no life, food, would remain, no ocean grains, no ocean, no loss. The ocean shapes pollution, shapes hormones, it's one for us to life, shapes planetary atmosphere, all those things. It doesn't have a room, you need the ocean, All the ocean needs us, and the ocean needs us. Questions like, questions closed, it's always got explored the ocean, experimentation in the 1950s. Before we were not
we're so good at catching and killing life in the ocean, wildlife in the ocean, that we can tune in, we're hearing now 90%, now 90% of them. Maybe in the Pacific, maybe in Pacific, maybe as much as 96% of the group that are still on the market, still available for sale. Here's where they were, and here's where they are, and here's where they are. If we look at them, if we just need to stop, stop. It isn't just sharks, it's sharks, it's those big potatoes, and all the relatives and all the relatives, and so they taste good. A lot of things taste good. We choose not to eat. We choose not to eat. We see a lot of things. We don't see the value of life. It greatly exceeds the value of dead. But it's taking us a while to understand that fish, creatures in the sea, that's wildlife, birds, like kangaroos, like koalas, like all the creatures that understand and respect their reasons, but they're just pounds of meat, and we know, and have the evidence, that our policies are not, if they were not safe, we would not say, here's where they are. 30 years ago, like I said, something like killing at the rate that we are, in the middle of the 20th century, the 20th century fishermen, because of the fish catch, the fish need to catch. Scientists began what they do, saying to their kids of 7 children, of this century, and enough fish left to stop commercial fishing, maybe enough to feed families and communities on a local scale. Maybe we can manage ourselves and so that there can be some fish for consumption, not when we minimize time destroy the ecosystems and the processes, dragging the trawls across the ocean, so they're cutting the farms, to shake it island.
Well, I'm not sure if the Australian Marine Conservation Research.
Yeah, well, I think they can ask questions, say, how do we know that? And peel back the layers, you might be able that it's true, the reasons to say kill, don't kill, basis that is as they are, that we observe their limits. I think that as things we go, sometimes we go a little too far. Wishful thinking. We just stop killing fish.
Well, it's lucky that it's getting out and we've got some of that brightest, some of that bright, so I'm glad that we're giving them the glad that you're really telling them really good. Okay, next question. You're based from College, Robert.
If you could witness any personal future, what would it be?
You could witness any event of present or future. It's a wacky accent to understand. Yes, we grew up in American.
Well, I would love to go and see the world as it was 1,000 years ago. And I would love to look ahead and see how it is, 1,000 years really make the right decision now, because this is the most dangerous time ever in history. And it will do forever, and what happens now is not just 1,000, but in the next 10 years, what we do now, is make all of it worse. We still have a chance. We have the coral reefs in pretty good shape. We still have 10% of the sharks left. We never kill them all. We never kill them all. If we want, we have the power, but we have the power. Let's just give them a go. So I think I would like to be in 10 years, because that's the time that you get your mind around where will you be in 10 years? What decisions can you right now? What influence can you have on the world? Move us to a better place. Years ago we had 1% of the ocean fully protected. Now we've got 2%. Decisions that we made just in the past year. Little island country, 80% entire of their explosive economic zone. That's what people in the fishers say. Other countries would be polluting Europe and Australia. Let's do a better job. Here, taking care within national control. And half the world seas, beyond our seas, we will make decisions. We will make right now in the next 10 years. We'll make all the difference.
So, Robert, in 10 years' time, you're going to be 23. You escort with your escort around when you're hunting around again in different what a name in that whole name. Okay, today. Thanks, Robert.
Together we're going to rotation 8 people a year by next year, and we can double it, and then double it again, and then double it again.
Pressure's on, not just you, but on all of us. Okay, now, next question to Jay Wallace. Jay Wallace, that's the last day of State High School. Jay.
What was your scariest experience in your work, and how did you overcome that?
The scariest thing I do, can actually do in working in my life, is get into a car, drive down the highway. That's really scary. It really is. People are coming after you, like somebody after you on high speed, and the only thing that banging keeps them from banging into you is that paint. The highway, mutual desire to go live. So, going in the water is not scary. It's not scary. It's a wonderful experience. You know, nothing here fear from creatures who have ever had potential. And there is the feeling that starts to actually get person goes in the ocean. I used to get advice about don't go in the ocean, don't go in the ocean. And I realized I'm a qualified. Creatures are, they much rather have a fish, something to consuming after 300 million years in this something strange and new. They have a lot to fear from us. We can't talk about that.
An answer I was expecting. Who has gone for a dive? Wow.
It's one of the best of you. It's one of the best of you.
And Sylvia's back. We all have to. Okay, now, and someone who couldn't be with someone today, she's today, she's in the United States, so we've got video, we've got a question from Peyton. That's not Peyton, that's Estelle. I'll go to the next question. Okay. So our next question. It's a long way from here. So you can understand the delay. Now, and last question. Sorry. And.
The same passion for being exploring what matters as we first start.
Okay, so that is Cairns. And I'm in North Queensland. I mean, we can't understand. So the question was, do you still hold the same passion for the underwater exploring as you did when you first started?
It just gets better. It does. Getting to the magnitude level you don't know is a great place to start. Most of the ocean never been seen. There's so much out there to discover, to explore, you gotta make discoveries. Way out in the water, to the average depth is 2.5 miles, 4 kilometers. Only 3 people live in James Cameron, somewhere here in Australia, the deepest place. That's, 11 kilometers, 7 miles. Well, there may be others who live there, but they still go back. That's That's the ocean. Divers have seen so much of the ocean. Here is the ocean. There's
smaller costs, zeroing out a certain speed of submersible underwater robots, submersibles that we project out into the ocean and steam ourselves, gazillions of airplanes, 7 miles in the sky, and think about how little millions live on the planet. So the greatest nations, just have a front row seat, and you just get out there. So it gets more.
Jennifer Ding, and Jennifer's in Year 9 at McGregor State High School.
As a female in a mostly male-dominated field, have you experienced any difficulties in getting to where you are now?
As a female in a mostly male-dominated field, have you experienced any difficulties in getting to where you are now?
Well, I'm not sure where I am now exactly.
You know, your job title is still the best job in the world, Explorer in Residence at National Geographic.
Cool.
It doesn't get any better than that.
Well, it is changing in a positive way for opportunities for women to dream and realize their dreams that in ways that were not as acceptable, let's say, when I began as an aspiring young scientist years ago. I was told at the time that as a woman I could be a nurse, not a doctor. I could be a teacher, not the superintendent. I could be an airline stewardess, not the pilot, or secretary, not the CEO. But things are changing, and it's to the benefit of everyone, men and women alike, to realize that there's a lot of need to tap into the brain power of women and men alike, and everything that both have to give. Yes, men and women are different. Glory be. But it's working together. I was told, I got to go sailing with 70 men when I was a young scientist. Nobody noticed at first that I'd be the only woman with 70 men. And the headline in the Mombasa Daily Times said, "Sylvia sails away with 70 men, but she expects no problems." The only problems I had were the same that my fellow scientists had. We had to explore the ocean from the surface up here. And you know, the ocean is really deep, and we're still just nibbling at the top. And I asked some of my male colleagues now, if you were asked to go with 70 women, would that be a problem? And I haven't met any of them who say no. They all think it would be kind of cool. But actually, why not kind of equal numbers or whatever it takes, just who can do the job?
That's fantastic.
Whatever it is.
A great question though. We're actually having an entire panel tomorrow at the Science Festival on bucking the system about challenges that women face and what we can do to overcome them. So you might want to keep an ear out for that. But a great question. Thanks very much, Jennifer.
Tell them half the fish are female.
Is it only half?
Half the birds who fly, you know, they fly together, swim together. We have some lessons to learn from other creatures. Especially our parrots.
Now, our next question. Thanks again, Jennifer. Yeah, let's give Jennifer a hand. I think we should give all of our questioners a hand. Now, Rowan Van Klinken is from Year 6 at Kelvin Grove State School. What's your question, Rowan?
What was the first thing that you discovered about the ocean?
The first thing I discovered about the ocean, aside from just the pleasure of getting knocked over by a wave and how exhilarating that was, is that it's alive. It's not just rocks and water. You know, in a glass full that looks perfectly clear like this, if you just look at it without really looking at it, it looks like there's nothing there. But if you look at it microscopically, or sometimes just holding a glass of seawater up to the light, you can see that there are little creatures in the ocean. Of course, we know about sharks and whales and the big things, coral reefs and kelp forests, but it's the little things that make the ocean like a living soup. But instead of the pieces being like carrots and whatever, it's alive. And to me, that's the biggest discovery of all. And we should look at the ocean as a living system, like a forest, only a lot of the creatures are really tiny.
And I guess that's why it's so important that you keep encouraging us to go and have a look in the ocean, because it really is, you know, you can't see it from out here. So congratulations on a great question.
Get a magnifying glass.
Yeah. Magnifying glass on a cup of water. You ready for the challenge, Rowan? Yes, good. Okay, thanks, Rowan. And Mitchell Bradshaw is in Year 8 at Ambrose Treacy College. What's your question for Sylvia, Mitchell?
What is something that hasn't yet been done that we could do to improve the health of reefs worldwide?
What can you do to improve the health of reefs worldwide? Well, it's like what can anybody do to make a difference for the ocean? First of all, arm yourself with knowledge. You know, you can get some idea of what the problems are. And here's the thing. As never before, we are beginning to identify what the problems are. And that gives us a jump start on finding solutions. One thing that we've discovered with the warming of the planet, that's causing some problems associated with what is known as coral bleaching, that the little organisms that live within the tissues of the coral die or they escape, and the corals look like a snowstorm had covered the reef. But they can recover if the water temperature returns to a normal range. So, one thing we've discovered is it's not just the warming, it's also what we've done to dismember coral reefs by catching the fish, by catching the lobsters, by taking the whole ecosystem and taking it apart, basically. It's like any city, like where we are here in Brisbane or Sydney or New York. It's not just about the buildings. It's about the taxi drivers. It's about the doctors. It's about the garbage collectors. It's a whole system. And when you take any piece of it away, the system doesn't work as well. So knowing that, we should be careful about how many fish, how many lobsters we take from the reefs. If we want to have healthy reefs and give them resilience against the warming of the planet, we have to have big areas that we just protect and leave alone. You have the best chance of not only recovering from warming, but also restoring places that have been depleted. So what you choose to eat can make a difference. You just consider what lives in the ocean as wildlife. And it's okay once in a while to have something from the ocean, I suppose, but the large-scale extraction of ocean wildlife is having a profound impact on the health of the ocean as a whole, including the reefs.
Thank you. That's a great question and, again, a great challenge. Thanks, Mitchell. We're burning through the questions now. Question 9 is Gabriel Lee, and you're in Year 10 at Brisbane State High School.
I had a look at the Mission Blue site and came across the term hope spots. On the site, they are defined as special places that are critical to the health of the ocean. How does Mission Blue aim to protect these hope spots? And how can such spots in the ocean contribute towards preventing climate change's detrimental effects towards marine biodiversity?
Wow. Hope spots, how are they going to work?
Well, here's the thing. If you think about it, there's just one hope spot. It's called the Earth. And we should do everything we can, while we're here, to restore and protect the way the planet functions. And everybody has power to do something. With Mission Blue, the something that we are focusing on is to seek help from people all over the world to say, what areas that you know about are you willing to put some time and energy and your whatever it is you've got to protecting a place that you know matters, that matters to you. And these are areas of hope. The National Geographic has a project called Pristine Seas that my fellow explorer in residence, Enrique Sala, is heading that program to identify areas around the world. He's zeroed in on about 20 places that have real cause for hope because they're still in pretty good shape. I mean, pristine seas is the name of the project. But there are other places that are not pristine, but they're cause for hope if we take action now to recover what's been lost and to build up this network of strength, while we also look at overarching policies to affect warming of the planet, to affect how much CO2 we allow to go into the atmosphere, to think about issues like the acidification of the ocean, and to think that for resilience, for restoration, we need to look at places wherever we can where people are willing to step up and say, I care, and I'm willing to invest some of my life into protecting this part of the ocean and celebrating it. So Mission Blue is working with the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN. This is an organization that has, in fact, we're meeting in Hawaii in September.
Your job's just
Congress,
lousy,
this
isn't
World
it?
Conservation
Explorer meetings in Hawaii.
Anyway, yeah, to look at who's doing what around the world and how can everyone work together and support one another. So Cause for Hope in where I was a week ago in Mexico, a place called Cabo Pomo, that 15 years ago was really in terrible shape, but people embraced it. The local people, even the local fishermen said, the fish are gone. If we're going to have, if there are to be fishermen, there have to be fish. And for there to be fish, you've got to take care of the breeding areas, the feeding areas. You can't take them everywhere all the time in unlimited numbers. So they led the way. Today, Cabo Pomo is a hope spot. It's a World Heritage Area. Like the Great Barrier Reef is a World Heritage Area. People care. But that means taking responsibility for individual actions to try to take out of the ocean the bad stuff we put into it, to look at what's happening on the adjacent land, what's going into the ocean from the land. Can we do something by looking at the whole system as well as individual actions? Like, I can't eat wild fish anymore. I know too much. What I do personally, it's just maybe one fish, but I'd rather have it swimming in the ocean than on my plate with lemon slices and butter. Even though I know how good they taste, I say, I think we need to give back to the ocean. We've taken so much so fast. We need to think about what we can do that will restore health to that place that takes care of us.
Just to have a little local focus, the Great Barrier Reef is a hope spot?
It definitely is a hope spot. It was one of the first named when the ocean in Google Earth was first appeared in 2009. There was the Great Barrier Reef as one of the first of the 18 that were named at that time.
Are there
and
any
the Coral
others
Sea.
okay.
Also,
Coral Sea.
right.
Yeah.
A big chunk of the ocean right here off the eastern coast of Australia. And now 51 areas have been dignified with the name, and they appear on Google Earth, and IUCN has them noted, but there are more than 200 new applications that have just come in the last couple of years that we're addressing. So if we connect the dots, it's like a network of hope for the whole world.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Sylvia, and thank you so much for your question, Gabrielle. And next up is question number 10, Lara Hughes, also in Year 10, and Lara's from Marsden State High School.
Have you ever struggled in your job, and what did you do to overcome it?
Have I ever struggled in my job, and what have I done to overcome it? Well, the biggest struggle is how do you squeeze enough time out of the time that you've got to do all the things you want to do? I mean, even my trip here, it's ridiculous. I have a big carbon footprint coming all the way from San Francisco to Brisbane to be here to speak on behalf of the ocean and share the view, if you will. And I have a lot to do to make up for it. That's a big challenge for me. It means I've got to do a lot of protection of the ocean and try to change the minds and hearts of people just to account for the big footprint that I'm making while I travel around. So the hardest, most challenging, frustrating thing for me is how do you get enough time to do all the things I want to do? I want to dive into the ocean. If I could be 2 or 3 or 6 of me, at least half would be out there in the ocean all the time.
Are you going to get a chance to dive in Moreton Bay while you're here? We've got dugong.
No, this time this is part of my frustration. It's come all this way and I have to look over as I sail over the ocean and wishing that I could be out there. So I hope that you will not let life go by without spending a lot of it out there in the ocean, getting wet, exploring. Yeah, I mean, getting wet is an opportunity to see things that if you don't get wet, you'll never see, except in pictures and so on, but even in your backyard, even, you know, I can find things that I've not looked at before in stuff that grows between the cracks in the cement on the sidewalk. There's a whole miniature world in there if you think about it. And you don't have to go like James Cameron to the deepest part of the ocean to be an explorer. What you have to do is just keep asking questions.
And it's exactly what you said before about when we're kids, when we're little kids, we ask those questions, and that's when we're sitting and staring at things and just wondering at those places we're getting to know. So I guess we've all got to go back to playing like 5 and 6 year olds and asking those questions. Terrific question. And
you can ask a question nobody can answer.
Yeah.
You can say, how deep is the ocean? That's a simple question. How high is the sky? How high is Mount Everest? Well, we can get Mount Everest down to a pretty detailed millimeter level. Of course, it keeps changing a little bit as the world shifts. But the ocean, I've done 2 atlases for the ocean for the National Geographic, and that's a simple question. How deep is the ocean? James Cameron came the closest of anybody because he went down with instruments and traveled over the bottom of the Mariana Trench. But did he find the deepest place? We don't know yet. It's still a question to be answered. Maybe you're the one to go out there and find out.
I'll see if I can get you James Cameron's email address and you can just see if he's got any spare submarines going. Thanks so much, Lara, for a terrific question. Yeah. And Christine Smith is in Year 9 at McGregor State High School.
Hello.
Hey.
Tell us about an expedition in which you've been involved in that has heavily contributed to your research, and how do these findings assist in a better understanding of marine ecosystems and conservation needs?
Could you say it?
Yeah. So an expedition that you've been involved in that's really contributed to your research, so something you've discovered out in the wild, and how those findings have helped our understanding of marine ecosystems. Yeah?
Goodness.
I know, that's 2 questions. That's a little bit unfair.
But every you know, an expedition can be a big deal, such as when I went to the Indian Ocean, sailed away with 70 men. That was 6 weeks at sea, and our job was to explore the ocean using the best technologies that we could muster at the time, including scuba diving. Nobody had been diving in parts of the ocean that we had a chance to see in 1964, because scuba diving was still just beginning to be accepted around the world. But an expedition can also be a short trip, such as what I did last week in Mexico, where we had just like 4 days to go out and go to a place that we had been to before and explored before. But every time you go, you'll see new things. Every time. Sometimes it's just witnessing and documenting change, or maybe it's new behavior, that you see a triggerfish doing something you've never seen a triggerfish do before. And nobody else perhaps has seen a creature, and you are a witness. We have the means now with cameras and with the internet to share the view, and we can get information out there. So every time that you go out to explore anything, to be a witness, to do what a scientist does, and it doesn't take a scientist, it can take anybody with a mind, just to observe carefully and report honestly what you see, and be ready to change your mind as new evidence is acquired, and to celebrate that, oh, I used to think whatever it was, now I know. And now that's the joy of being around right now, early in the 21st century. We know things today, and anybody can tune into this distillation of what people have been exploring and discovering over all preceding history. That's the gift that humans have, that we discover things and we pass it along. You don't have to start out right now to figure out numbers or an alphabet. Or, of course, there are a lot of languages out there, but we communicate at a level that is unprecedented in all of history. So you can have an expedition yourself any day you choose, any hour. Just go out and observe the natural world and report honestly what you see. Who knows? You may have a breakthrough. Individuals have been doing this throughout all of history. I've had the fun of being a participant in submarine expeditions, but the best ones are the ones that are out there still to come.
Thank you. And thanks for that great question. Thomas Belfort is in Year 10. He's at Brisbane State High School.
Hello.
Hey.
What would you suggest as an alternative method for industrial fishing, which would be less harmful to ocean ecosystems?
So an alternative to industrial fishing, I think first we need to ask the question, do we really need to do this? And if so, why? It's subsidized right now heavily. Billions of dollars around the world are being invested in industrial extraction of ocean wildlife. And the question is, do we need this? If so, I mean, that's a question you should be asking. How important is it to the food security, to the economy, or to what? Why are we doing this? Why did we kill whales far into the 20th century, even though the need for killing whales was hard to justify? It wasn't feeding a lot of people. We had alternatives to the oil we were extracting, but we had this habit of killing these marine mammals for products. So when you look at the numbers, what feeds people today? I mean, we need to think about how are we going to feed 7 billion people, but most of the calories come from plants, and mostly corn, rice, wheat, and soy that we cultivate. And the animals that we consume are largely cows, chickens, pigs, you know, a handful of the thousands of kinds of mammals and birds that are out there. Just a few of them are plant eaters that grow fast and taste good and are high nutrition. We've selected out of this great array of animals on the land and plants, 250,000 kinds of flowering plants, plus a bit. I suppose we keep discovering new ones. And yet we've just boiled it down to a handful that provide most of the calories. Like 80% of the calories come from corn, rice, wheat, and soy. And of course, for protein and oils and other things that animals deliver to us, the amount that feeds people around the world, it's a tiny fraction of the total. But we have this inflated idea of food security when it comes to wildlife from the sea. And here's where these creatures were in the middle of the 20th century. Here's where their numbers are today. We know how to capture them and market them and all of that. But if we keep doing it with 10% left, we're not going to feed a lot of people, even if we had to, but we don't have to. Most of what feeds people comes from what we grow. And we grow not top carnivores like tuna and swordfish and groupers and snappers and even the little fish like herring and the small ones are predators. They eat plankton, mostly zooplankton. And a tuna can be 20 or 30 years old. These big grouper and other fish, you know, like turtles, they can be decades old. You don't eat 30-year-old cows or 10-year-old chickens. You get them when they're growing fast and when they're young and when you get the most efficient sunlight plants protein. And in the ocean, you get sunlight plants, these little tiny organisms that go through this long and twisted food chain, and then you get a turtle or a whale or a tuna or a grouper, and they don't come to market when they're 6 months or a year or 2 years, or even in many cases 10 years. You've got to wait until they're some sharks take 20 years just before they can make more sharks. Bluefin tuna, it's 6-10 years, depends on the species and where they are, but it's not like an annual production that you get with chickens or with pigs or cows. So we need to ask those questions, and you might be the one to come up with, well, maybe we don't have to do this at all. Maybe in order to have enough in places where people don't have many choices, coastal communities, island nations, that we can get it right to protect enough of the ocean so that there are sufficient wild things to feed the people who have few choices. But the industrial extraction is simply not sustainable. No matter how you crunch the numbers, it's not working.
Thank you.
Thank you. Terrific question and a great and challenging answer. Matthew Pankhurst is at Simon Roach is Year 12 at Meridian State College. Hey, Simon.
Hello. How do you prevent ecosystems from becoming functionally vulnerable and redundant?
To prevent them from becoming
functionally
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Good question. And think about the land. What do you do there to keep systems intact? You consciously stop the killing. You consciously do what you can to take the pressure off. National parks. In the United States, we're celebrating the centennial of national parks, where if we, imagine if, whether it's in the US or here in Australia or all around the world, if no actions had proactively been taken to embrace these natural systems, whether they're watersheds or forests or coral reefs, and we had to start right now, and no action had ever been taken, we wouldn't have at least the chance that presently exists. About 14% of the land has some form of pretty solid protection, national parks. It's not enough to maintain the integrity of a planet that works in our favor, but it's a lot better than what we've done for the ocean. But now we know that's the key. So asking the question that you have asked is a good one to ask everybody around you. What can we do? How can we take the pressure off the Great Barrier Reef from the flow of nitrates and phosphates flowing in the sediment that's coming from the land, and the carbon dioxide acidifying the ocean, not just in the Barrier Reef, but around the world. So, anything that you can do that affects climate change in terms of CO2 emissions, it's helping the Great Barrier Reef. It's the choices you make about what you consume. Just give the ocean a break. Give the wildlife that now is in markets everywhere. I can't believe that parrotfish have become a popular thing to eat. The ocean needs the parrotfish. You don't need the parrotfish to eat, unless maybe you don't have many choices and you live in a coastal community and it's we need to save the parrotfish for those who have few choices. But for most people, it's a luxury. I mean, it's in Harrods. You see parrotfish that live a long way from England in the department store market in Harrods. They feature parrotfish. It's like, just say no. Don't encourage them. In fact, do everything you can to discourage such behavior. There are ways that we can take action in an overarching way, but also see what you can do to encourage the protection of places you know and care about that you love, on the land and in the sea, because it's protecting your life. It's not just about the fish, it's about humankind and where we're going too.
Fantastic. Great challenging question. Thanks so much, Simon. And our last question is from Matthew Pankhurst, Year 8 at Ambrose Tracy College.
Dr. Earle, with your work on Mission Blue, what is your favourite hope spot and why?
No pressure, but I'd probably say Great Barrier Reef.
Well, I think the simple, basic answer is there's only one hope spot, and that's the whole ocean. It's all of the earth that is dominated by the ocean. And beyond that, anything you can do anywhere, including right here in your backyard, is like, yes, making a difference while there's still time. The most important thing that we extract from the ocean, listen up, is our existence. That's what the ocean gives us. We're alive. And now we have to return the favor.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And keep that applause going for everyone. And also applause for Luke Waldy, who didn't have time. He was our seat warmer there. He didn't quite get time to get his question in. So
we can hurry.
Well, okay, so there's two options. Do you have one more message that hasn't been covered in a question
let's
that you'd
have
like
another
to
question.
deliver? All right, Luke Waldy, get up here. Quick question. She's amazing.
How did viewing our environment and planet as a whole from an oceanic standpoint affect your views on conservation and the impacts of humanity?
How did viewing our ocean and planet as... no, you say it.
Yeah. How did viewing our environment and planet as a whole from an oceanic standpoint, from viewing from the ocean, affect your views on conservation and the impacts of humanity?
Yeah, I think it's getting the word out there that the ocean drives everything we care about. Take away the ocean, the economy, our health, our security, life itself. And protecting the ocean as if our life depends on it. Our
Because
lives
it does.
depend on it, and because they do. And it's that 2x4, wake up, it's the ocean, stupid, or something like that.
Yeah.
Getting aware of appreciation, respect, and acknowledging why the ocean matters. With every breath you take, every drop of water you drink, if you've never seen the ocean or touched the ocean, knowing that the ocean touches you. When you breathe, when you take a bath, it's the ocean, because that's where most of the water is. And if you take away the ocean, you take away the clouds, the rain, you take away life itself. So that's your job, your mission's mine. It should be everybody's, to appreciate what the ocean does for us, and then do whatever we can to show respect and care while there's still time to make a difference.
Thanks so much, Luke, for that question. And join me in thanking Dr. Sylvia Earle for sharing her thoughts, her passion, her wisdom, her experience with us here this morning. An amazing opportunity. And I have to say, I think you put it so powerfully, the work that the ocean does to make life possible on Earth. I think that's something we don't have in our heads. We grew up in Australia with a beach culture and a beach idea, but a lot of us don't make that connection that the sea gives us pretty much everything. So it's really, I think that's a very powerful message that you've given us. Now, we do have time for one more question, but Sylvia, it's a question for you to pose to everyone here today. So have you got something that you'd like to ask everyone to think about or consider?
Yeah. Just the big question. I don't expect an answer, but I'll be watching. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to make a difference? Because whether it's a conscious thing or whether you sort of shrug it off, that's a decision. That's indifference is part of the problem. That it's a decision. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just one little person. What difference would it make what I do? That's a decision. It's a decision by default. And you can go with the flow and let things continue as they have been and look where that's going to take us. Or you can say, what can I do? So that's my question to you. What are you going to do? How can you use whatever it is you've got? Everybody's got something. There are no exceptions to that. So I'll be looking for some evidence of your decisions.
And she'll be back in 10 years' time, and it's not just Robert who'll have something to do then. We'll all have to show Sylvia what we've been doing in those 10 years. It's a fantastic challenge to end on. Join me again in thanking Dr. Sylvia Earle. And thank you. Terrific. And that brings to an end our Pioneers session for today. I hope you go and have some great fun with everything else that you're doing in the World Science Festival. And Sylvia's very graciously consented to have a pop star photo shoot with all the people who so bravely got up and asked questions. So that's great. And also with our STEM campers. So the blue and green, they should never be seen, but in this photo we'll make an exception, okay? So thanks again, and enjoy the rest of the festival. If the people who asked the questions and STEM could stay, that's great. Thank you. That was so lovely. Thank you so much. You're just beautiful with them.
Pop you in the middle,
okay,
as the superstar.
Yeah.
We'll try and get some high
I think I was supposed to do something with the iPad, but I have no idea what it was. It all seemed to work.